Once again, good morning, everyone. Today we'll have lesson 5.3, and it's about statistical methods. Later, after you'll do your data collection, I will have some lectures again with you on how to run your data using a software. But today, I'll just give an overview on what statistical methods can we use to solve or to analyze for the data that we'll be gathering. Now, our memory verse today is found in Proverbs 14, verse 12. It says, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death. Your MVCA boosters today is also related to our memory verse. And at the end of the class, we'll be able to, let's start with the third one, define statistics, justify the relevance of statistics to research, differentiate descriptive from inferential statistics, explain the methods of bivariate data analysis, familiarize with bivariate statistical methods, and compare and contrast the kind of test to measure correlation or covariation. Now, we start with this venture with me activity in your activity number 1. Now, I will not ask you to do plus and minus, but you can tell me what the word is all about. If you say concrete, it's tangible. If you say trait, it's a characteristic. If you say abstract, then it would mean something that would represent another thing. Then direction. And the last is action. It's a verb. The words can be calculate, soothsayer, variance, prowess, and fork. As we go on with our discussion today, think of these words: calculate, soothsayer, variance, prowess, and fork. Now, what is statistics? We have a whole class last semester on this, but what is statistics? Now, statistics, or just call it stat, is a term that pertains to your acts of collecting and analyzing numerical data. For example, we gather data, then we analyze it. How do we analyze it? You could not do the mathemata system, but to analyze it, we need to use statistics in order to analyze well the numerical data. And based on your analysis, we will interpret the data. For example, if you say that the reading comprehension level is at 3 out of 5, now what does it mean? That's the interpretation. Then we organize data either into tables or into graphs for us to see what and how did you run out the data. Now, there are two kinds of statistics. First is descriptive statistics, and the other is inferential statistics. If you say descriptive statistics, the keyword is describe. That's the root word. Descriptive statistics plainly describes the data. What do we solve in descriptive statistics? This one, we only solve the mean, median, mode, and standard deviation. Basically, if you'll have your tables later on, there's only two things that you need to report: the mean and the standard deviation. The mean is your average. The standard deviation tells us of the gap of your data from the mean. So basically, again, it only describes. For example, on the study on the stress levels of STEM students. If the average, if the mean is at 75, then what does it mean? How will that 75 stress level describe the stress levels of students? That's why, again, descriptive statistics would only describe your data. For inferential statistics, the root word is infer, based on the word inference. What do you mean by infer or inference? If you say inference, then we make predictions, we make conclusions. Example, inferential statistics is a branch of stat that focuses on conclusions, generalizations, predictions, interpretations, and hypotheses. If you will use inferential statistics, it would tell us that your study has a hypothesis, a null and alternative hypothesis. If your study is plainly descriptive, then there is no hypothesis to be tested. For example, if your study is only on the stress levels of senior high school students, then we ask, what is the level of stress among senior high school students? Then we plainly describe the data. So we use descriptive statistics. But if your study is on the stress levels and academic performance of senior high school students, the first question is, what is the stress level? Descriptive. What is the academic performance? Descriptive. But in your next question, you ask, is there a significant relationship between the stress level and academic performance of senior high school students? That time, we start to make a relationship. Will your stress level predict or will make a conclusion to what your academic performance will be? With that case, we will use inferential statistics. And with that question, we know that there is a hypothesis to be tested. Is there a significant relationship between stress level and academic performance? So again, in descriptive, you simply describe the levels. But in inferential, we make predictions, we make conclusions, we test the hypothesis. Now, I noticed that some of your studies are only up to the descriptive part. I suggest that we bridge it towards inferential. For example, if your study is to plainly describe what are the academic experiences of students in modular learning, that is plainly descriptive. We can bridge it to an inferential so you can see and appreciate more the beauty of research. Now, there are three types of data analysis. First is univariate analysis. It means we only have one variable. For example, we just say the stress levels of senior high school students. That's only one variable. So we say it's under the univariate analysis. In bivariate analysis, bi means two, so there are two variables. Example, stress levels and academic performance. One is the independent, the stress level, and the dependent is your academic performance. If you say multivariate analysis, there's more than two variables. If you can have two independent, one dependent, or one independent, two dependents. It's up to you. For example, stress levels and sleep quality on academic performance. There are three variables this time. So we use multivariate analysis. Now, how do we analyze bivariate data? We can do it first by correlation or covariation. Again, if you say correlation, it means we check the relationship of one variable and another variable. We see, again, last time we say, it's not enough that a relationship exists. We ask, is the relationship significant or not? Because even if there is a relationship between stress level and academic performance, but if the relationship is not significant, then it does not bear anything in the research. It just says there's a relationship, but it's not significant. So we can do that to test through correlation. The other is cross-tabulation. Now, what do you see in a cross-tabulation? In a cross-tabulation, it's a table where you can see the frequency and percentage of distribution data. We can just describe the relationship as we see the bivariate table together with its percentage distribution. For example, here's an example of a bivariate data. This is on the participants in the 2016 National Union of Students of the Philippines Conference. So you can see that, for example, for FEU, there are more females. For LaSalle, there are more females. For UP, there are more males. For UST, there are more males. In all, there are more females than males. You see, that's only the distribution. So we plainly describe the data. Like, how do you distribute, or what of what gender has more attendees in the conference? Then you can present it with a descriptive table. But whether you say, are there more males than females? You can answer that with this table. But if we place the word significant, example, we say, are there significantly more females than males? We could not conclude it because the word significant would tell us to use inferential statistics. Now, how do we measure correlation? Or what is measured when we do correlation? When we do correlation, we solve for the correlation coefficient. Last time we write it as R. Now, how do we measure correlation coefficient? Or what is measured in correlation coefficient? Once we solve for R, or for the correlation coefficient, then we measure the strength. Example, what is the value of your R? Last time we have the very strong relationship. Is it a strong relationship, a moderate, a weak, or a very weak relationship? The next, direction. Remember that trend line. If it goes up, it's a positive direction. Is the relationship positive? Like if the stress levels will go up, academic performance will also go up? Or is the relationship, the direction, negative? Like when the stress level goes up, then academic performance goes down. So what's the strength and what's the direction of the relationship? That is seen in the value of your R, the correlation coefficient. Now, there are many tests for correlation coefficients, but today I'll just share two. The first is the Spearman's law. The other is the one you're acquainted with last time, the Pearson product moment correlation. Now, when do we use Spearman's law and when do we use Pearson's product moment correlation, or Pearson's R? We use Spearman's law to measure the dependence of the dependent variable on the independent variable. For example, how dependent is this variable on the other one? We use Spearman's law with that. But if we check the strength and the direction between interval and ordinal variables, then we use the Pearson product moment correlation. I'll deal more on this in the next once you have your data gathered. The next one, again, the R, or the correlation coefficient, only tells us the strength and direction of your relationship. But the next question, is the relationship significant or not? To test that, we can use chi-square or t-test. What will be the ending of this? The ending will be the p-value. How do you know that your how will you know that your data is statistically significant? If your p-value is less than the level of significance. In our stat class, usually the level of significance is at 0.05. So if the p-value is less than 0.05, then we say that the relationship is significant. Now, a chi-square, it's a statistical test, and it can be used for bivariate analysis of nominal variables. And we can test for the p-value. In t-test, there are many ways. For example, one sample t-test. There's a group of reading comprehension. You compare it to a standard of 90. That's one sample t-test. Again, for paired sample t-test, we compare the before and the after. For independent samples t-test, we compare two groups. Example, after of group 1 of reading comprehension with classical music, and the other after of group 2. And the last is analysis of variance. In ANOVA, there's more than 2 groups. So group 1, group 2, and group 3. There are many kinds of ANOVA. I'll share you 3. The first is one-way analysis of variance. Like example, we study the effects of the independent variable. So 1, 2, and 3. Method 1, method 2, method 3. That's only one-way analysis of variance. But for ANCOVA, we study 2 or more dependent variables that are correlated with one another. For example, this is stress level number 1, stress level of strand 1, stress level of ABM, stress level of STEM. And then there's another covariate. We have sleep quality. So we compare the stress levels of 3 strands with our covariate of sleep quality. And the last one is Markova. Markova is done if you have more than two independent variables and another dependent variable. Example, this one, stress levels and sleep quality, and you have here academic performance. With that one, we use Markova, or multiple analysis of covariance. Now, how about regression? I told you that regression is very similar to correlation. What's the difference? In correlation, we just say, how strong is the relationship? Is the relationship positive or negative? That's the one big answer in correlation. In the test of significance, we say, is the relationship significant? But in regression, we ask, can sleep quality or can stress level predict academic performance? If the keyword is predict, then we need to use regression. How will it look like? Here's a sample from my study. And if you have regression, you will have a path diagram. Now, what are these numbers? You'll see these are my independent variables: attitude, motivation, and engagement. And they are all affecting the dependent variable, which is achievement. Ma'am, how is achievement different from academic performance? My teacher told me that if you're just talking about examination scores, that's plainly achievement, because academic performance can be measured in many ways. Like the grades, yes, can be academic performance because it's measured through written work, and performance tasks, skills plus cognitive development. But if you talk about examination scores, we just talk about achievement. Now, if you see this one, these numbers here would represent the correlation coefficient. And this one is also the correlation coefficient. Example, attitude and engagement, that's 0.61. That's based on the table, it's a strong relationship. Attitude and motivation are correlated, 0.77. That's a strong relationship, positive relationship. Motivation and engagement, that's 0.52. That's a moderate level of positive relationship. But you see, can attitude predict achievement? Yes, at 0.10. Can motivation predict achievement? You see at negative 0.15. It means negative predictor. Can engagement predict achievement? Yes, at 0.50. But you look at the p-values. I told you a while ago that it's only significant if the p-value is less than 0.05. So attitude is not a significant predictor. Motivation is not a significant predictor, while engagement is a significant predictor. You look at this one again, it's a positive significant predictor. So it means that if the student is more engaged in mathematics, behaviorally, cognitively, emotionally, and socially, then it will also yield to a better or to a higher achievement score. This is how regression will look like. If you'll just work on correlation, you just end here. But this one makes it in the regression level with the predictors. So that ends our lesson for today. Let me end first my